Hey guys, today we're making apple pie on a pizza pan. This pie is much quicker than your typical pie because the pie isn't as deep and is spread out in a thin layer, which makes it bake much more quickly. Begin with your mise en place. Add 1 tablespoon apple cider vinegar to your ice water. Adding vinegar helps create a flakier pie crust, but it isn't necessary. Next, combine your dry ingredients. 3 cups all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon salt, and 2 tablespoons sugar. You can reduce the amount of sugar if you're making a savory pie. Whisk together until thoroughly combined. Add your cold shortening and cut in with a pastry blender, 2 knives, or a fork. You want the pieces to be about the size of small peas. Continue cutting in the shortening until it resembles small peas. Then add your cold butter. Make sure your butter is cut into cubes and then use a pastry blender to cut that into your mixture. Continue to cut it in until you have small butter pieces about the size of peas. Once your fat is cut in, you'll begin adding your ice water. Add about half of your ice water and stir to combine. Depending on the weather and where you live, you may not need all of that water, or you may need a little additional water. You want to stir to moisten your ingredients, adding a little more water at a time as needed. Once you think you've added enough water, squeeze some in your hands. If it forms a ball, then you've got enough water. It should not stick to your hands, but rather just stick together and not be super crumbly, though it will be a little crumbly. Form it into a ball. Handle it as little as possible so that your butter and fat don't melt. You want them to stay cold. You can see those little butter and fat pieces, which is what you want. Once your dough is in a ball, wrap it in plastic wrap and flatten it into a disc and refrigerate until you're ready to use it. When you're ready to roll out your dough, you will let it sit at room temperature for 10 to 15 minutes. It's time to make your apple filling. Combine your sugar, cinnamon, and nutmeg in a small bowl. Stir to combine and then set aside. Peel your apples. When cutting your apples, cut on the side of the core. That will give you flat pieces so that you can easily slice your apples. Slice the apples in 1/8 of an inch pieces. That is really thin, and it's important so that you have enough apples to cover the bottom of your crust. If the apples are too big, they will not bake in the short amount of time. Add your cinnamon, sugar, and nutmeg to your apples and stir to coat them. Next, you'll make your crumble topping. Combine your flour and sugar and stir to combine, and then add your cubed butter. You will cut in the butter with the pastry blender just like you did for your pie crust. This will be a crumbly topping that you can sprinkle over top of your apples. Roll out your pie crust until it's about 1 inch larger than your pizza pan. Begin by sprinkling your counter with some flour. Sprinkle some flour on top of your pie crust as well so that it does not stick. Your crust tends to absorb flour while you're rolling it out, so it's important that you move your dough often as you're rolling it. You will also lift it up and sprinkle flour underneath it as needed. You can also sprinkle more flour on top of it if it begins to stick as well. If your dough cracks or has a hole in it, we will patch that later as we transfer it to the pizza pan. The easiest way to transfer it to the pizza pan is just by folding it in half and then sliding it onto that pizza pan. You would do the same thing if you were using a pie pan. You want to work carefully and quickly so that your dough doesn't break. You want about 1 inch excess around the outside edge to fold under to make your crust. You can use scissors or a knife to cut off any excess. Fold under your crust about 1/2 inch. If you have a crack or hole, you can patch it just with some water and excess dough. Crimp the edge of the pie between your index finger and thumb to make a decorative edge. This edge also prevents the juices from running off of your pie and is an important step in making sure that all the juices stay on that pie and don't make a mess in the bottom of your oven. Next, you'll cover the bottom of your pie with your apples. I like to make them decorative and make them look nice. However, you will be adding your crumble toppings, so you won't see how nice they look. But you do want to make sure that you cover that whole bottom of your crust so that you have apples in every single bite. Spreading out your apples also ensures that it's not too thick and that it will cook in that 25 to 30 minute time period. Once your apples are spread out onto your pie, you will add the crumble topping. It seems like a lot of topping, but that butter and sugar will melt in the cracks of those apples and make a nice crust on the top of your pie. Bake for 25 to 30 minutes at 425 degrees. Your crust will be golden brown. Slice your apple pizza and serve with vanilla ice cream and a little bit of caramel sauce. Enjoy!